Hey everybody, Mike Slifer here in the First Alert Forecast Center. We are talking a bit about this beautiful end to the work and school week that we have ahead, some fair forecasts, some football forecasts, and a little look ahead to what we're expecting as we head into the weekend. Your first alert to maybe an isolated storm, and then of course a look at next week too. We do want to begin with what's going on outside right now. You may not even have noticed it, but a cold front rolled through earlier today. It's dissipating now that it's moving south of the state. And we really didn't see much of an impact from this at all. Maybe a slight increase in cloud cover, and that was really about it. So a pretty lackluster frontal passage, which was what we expected. We were certainly not expecting to see too much out of this. And behind that, we'll eventually see high pressure start to settle back south from Canada, keeping nice dry conditions around both tomorrow and Saturday. Perhaps that'll change on Sunday. Your little first alert there to, again, maybe an isolated storm chance. We'll have much more on that in just a moment. We do want to show you where temperatures peak today. Upper 70s for many towns, mid 70s, Waterbury, Groton, and then 82 at Tweed, New Haven. So that was certainly the warm spot today. And we're seasonable out there. We'll call it seasonable. 78 is the normal high for the Hartford area today, and that's exactly where we ended at Bradley International. It was a bit of a cool start out there. Believe it or not, many towns started off in the upper 40s. So it was another crisp beginning to what was otherwise a beautiful September day. Temperatures over the last several days have been running below normal. The last time we were above normal was Saturday. And at the end of last week, in general, we were a little bit warmer than normal. And we actually have some warmth coming up in the First Alert 7-day forecast. More on that in just a moment. But something else we wanted to talk about was rain. So over the course of the weekend, we did see meaningful rainfall across the state. Interestingly, the drought monitor really doesn't look that different compared to last week. In fact, moderate drought has been added for the southern shoreline, the southern coastline of Rhode Island. So South County, Rhode Island, now seeing moderate drought popping up, and that goes almost all the way to Stonington. So you're watching, of course, to see if that gets expanded and any future updates on the drought monitor, but you can see here on our drought monitor comparison that we did not really see big changes in Connecticut. The biggest changes were certainly to our north, and then that little change in Rhode Island. So we'll be watching very closely. Our next chance for unsettled weather will arrive on Sunday. First Alert Futurecast here, 7 p.m. on Saturday, showing that front is still dropping out of Canada. We're dry on Saturday, but as that front moves in, we see the increasing chance for perhaps some isolated shower or storm development. We are certainly not expecting a washout on Sunday, but we're starting to see as that disturbance pivots south, perhaps, especially in the afternoon, a greater risk for some showers to pop up. Here's 1 p.m. Sunday on our model comparison, both the American and European models showing these light shades of green. Typically, when we see lighter shades of green like this, it means isolated to scattered nature. It also indicates that we're not talking about big downpours. So maybe some minor impacts to plans. Most plans will go off without any issues, and also likely not going to be adding much to the areas that need to see some of that rain. So likely not the meaningful rainfall that some may be looking for. By 7 p.m. Sunday, we'll likely still be tracking at least the chance for some showers before things dry out into the start of next week. So this is your first alert that we are keeping our eyes on Sunday. Over the next couple of days, we will continue to hone in on the timing here. We did want to mention, if you have the free First Alert weather app, you can track anything that develops right from the palm of your hand. Also, you'll be able to see if thunderstorms are headed your way. You get an update based on your location that lightning's headed in your direction. So obviously, never good to be outside when there's lightning. So if you hear thunder, you're close enough to be struck. Make sure if you do get a notification that lightning is headed in your direction, you step inside and let the storms pass you by. We're not tracking any showers out there right now. First Alert Live radar scanning clear and dry. This is Connecticut's only live radar. You can see the beam originating from within our state's borders. This is at Bradley, at Windsor Locks, and we have nothing really to show here. It's quiet, and that's what we expected. It was a nice quiet night across the state. Here's a live look at our ICAM in Hartford. 64 degrees. We can very clearly see the top of the Travelers Tower. Winds are calm in our capital city. And we'll take you to the Elm City, 67 and calm. And these quiet conditions are expected to last even into the day tomorrow. Interestingly, some towns are actually a couple of degrees lower than they were yesterday at this point in time. We have upper 50s in northwestern and southeastern Connecticut, but outside of those pockets, temperatures are between 60 and 65 degrees. When you get to New Haven and point southwest, closer to 70 degrees. So some big differences across our small state right now, certainly. We do expect everybody to drop down into the 50s later on tonight. Might take a little while, but with mostly clear skies out there, we are expecting, we'll say 50 to 55 throughout most of inland Connecticut, along the shoreline 55 to 60. If your plans tomorrow take you up to West Springfield for the start of the Big E, gates open actually at 8 in the morning, but a lot of the other attractions will open between 9 and 10. 66 at 10 a.m. We peak at 76 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're still in the mid-70s by 6 p.m. Dry and back into the mid-60s by 9 o'clock tomorrow night. So maybe an extra layer, but all things considered, should be a great day to spend some time at the fair. If you are instead going to be in school, 55 to 60 for the ride to school at the bus stop tomorrow morning. Recess outside. Plenty of sunshine, temps around 70 on either side of 70. And then for the ride home, we will see temperatures peaking in the mid-70s. And again, a decent amount of sunshine. The other big thing that returns tomorrow night is Friday night football. How about our game of the week? Windsor Locks, Suffield, East Granby at Ellington. Temperatures going from the mid-70s around kickoff into the lower half of the 60s by the time the game will be wrapping up. If you are headed out to the game, you might just want to have a light layer on standby, on hand, just in case you get a little cool, but it certainly looks pretty seasonable, all things considered. And we're not really expecting much in the way of mugginess either. Dew points will stay in the pleasant range for the next 5 days and beyond, as far as we can tell. So no real intrusion of moisture, certainly nothing that's looking very muggy or humid anytime soon. And of course, the later we get into the month, the less likely it is that we see that muggier air make its return. So really starting to perhaps look a little like fall in some spots. But if you suffer from fall allergies, you already know that it's the seasons are turning. Ragweed and grasses. Now, the counts aren't actually too high the next couple of days, and they go even lower on Sunday with that chance for some isolated showers. But if you have a ragweed allergy, if you are allergic to any of the pollens this time of year, you've likely already been feeling it because it's been so dry. And we do have more dry days in the forecast for next week, so just something to keep an eye on there. Something else we're keeping an eye on is this wave in the tropics. Now, it only has a low chance of actually becoming named in the next 5 to 7 days. And what's interesting here is that this is typically when we are at the peak of activity in the tropical Atlantic. So the peak of Atlantic hurricane season was yesterday, but really any time within we'll say early to mid-September, there tends to be a lot more activity. It doesn't mean there's always activity ongoing, but this is when we typically see things peak. And that's because this is when the water temperature is at its highest. It's the warmest. And also any waves off of Africa, if the conditions are right, can intensify rather quickly. We don't have those conditions in place right now. Saharan dust and overall large-scale subsidence, in other words, sinking dry air, is really prohibiting a lot of that from developing and also increased wind shear currently. But that could change as we get especially into next week. We'll be watching closely. To take things back home, look at this temperature trend going from the mid-70s back into the upper 70s. By Tuesday next week, low 80s, and we keep that through Thursday. Connecticut Day at the Big E is next Wednesday, and as we see it right now, looking like a fine day. By Thursday next week, we'll be looking at maybe increased cloudiness. There are some big differences in model guidance. At this point in time, we're going perhaps optimistically bright and dry. We'll be watching that very closely. Shoreline towns go from the mid-70s through Monday. So tomorrow through Monday will be in the mid-70s, back into the upper 70s starting on Tuesday. Really a nice stretch of weather on the way next week. The only chance for any type of unsettled weather is that isolated storm risk on Sunday. So just keep an eye out if you have plans to be outdoors on Sunday. The 6 to 10 day outlook here, which brings us from the 17th through the 21st of September. So into the third week of the month, showing these shades of orange and red, indicating the higher likelihood the temperatures will actually end up above average. So perhaps things will be a little bit milder as we approach mid-September. In less than a week, our sunsets will be back in the 6 p.m. hour, so something to keep in mind there. And we wanted to talk briefly about foliage. Now, we did have a little bit of stress from the dry ground, so some of the trees are turning a bit prematurely, but typically we see our peak foliage mid-October in northwestern and northeastern Connecticut, late October from the Connecticut River Valley down to the shoreline, and sometimes early November along the immediate 95 corridor. So we will start to likely see some splotches of color pop up over the next couple of weeks. It's typically mid-September when we start to see low amounts of color mixed in. So don't be surprised if as we start to show those forecast maps from Explore Fall, they get a little more colorful moving forward. And of course, once we get into October, that's when we really get into some of the good stuff. Temperatures again running near, if not slightly above normal for at least the next 7 days. One chance for isolated storms on Sunday. You can join Scott Haney tomorrow morning for the latest. Otherwise, we will have you covered with our next First Alert Weather Extra tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And then again, streaming live right here on WFSB Plus at 9:30. Hope you all had a great night and hope you have a great end to the work week. We will see you on the wax in 20.